What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down some big news involving Tesla and China, which could be affecting Tesla, which you should be watching for going into tomorrow as we have some new signals affecting the markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 25 in total, and deposit $5,000, you're guaranteed 60 free stocks. You also qualify for an 8.1% APY in uninvested cash, and the offer ends as soon as June 3rd. Anyways, as far as Tesla's going, I just want to mention that right now we have this triple bearish divergence that's been developing because as Tesla was going higher and higher, making higher highs over and over again, we saw our other indicators, such as our volume indicators, our MACD, RSI, and many others continuing to drag downwards. So that was showing us a massive divergence that was continuing to develop. I mentioned yesterday that I was expecting Tesla to push for 345, and if that broke, we're looking for a test of 350 because we were looking at some nice signals, and that's very awesome to see. We did actually try to push up towards that 350 area, but instead of holding above that, we actually saw Tesla get a rejection. We got a big rejection there, and we closed below 345, which is not the best of signs. So because the whole market is starting to show some weakness, there's going to be a risk of Tesla following the trend because Tesla does tend to do that. And we're going to be watching this 20 EMA, 20 EMA, to be tested right over here. That could also cause, a little bit more downside. So I want to give you guys a warning about that. So before I go into the more specific details, let's talk about some more news that came out. Mizuho gave Tesla an outperform rating, which is awesome news, but the price price ratio is starting to slow down a little bit because for the last couple of days, Tesla's strength started to go down just a bit. Also, when you look at Tesla compared to like SPY, you could see that they do tend to move very similarly. They were pushing together, they dipped together, then they started to push together again. Now they're slowing down together, at least for the last 2 days, at least to some extent. The QQQ and Tesla side by side, you guys can see they have very, very similar trends. That's the reason why if the whole market does start to sell off a bit, that could have a big effect on Tesla. On top of that, I just want to mention that when it comes to seasonality, Wednesdays tend to be green about 48% of the time for Tesla, so it's not the strongest of days. May tends to be an okay month for us as we're green about 53% of the time, but June tends to be a lot stronger. Besides that, we tend to see more volatility at noon and also during the second to last hour of the day, so keep that in mind. Now, Tesla started off with this big pump. We got a nice pump all the way up to about that 355 area, but instead of holding above that, we got a big rejection. Why did Tesla pump like that? We got some good news that came out involving Elon Musk right over here. So Elon Musk was in an interview and he said some very important things. First off, he's going to be committed to being at Tesla for 5 years. That is great news. He wants to serve as CEO for 5 years. Awesome, awesome news. There's a lot of headlines coming out that the board wanted to replace Elon Musk, get rid of him, but it turns out he has debunked those fears and he wants to be a part of the company for a long time, for at least another 5 years. On top of this, Elon Musk talked about how he does not want Doge to interrupt and interfere with his companies. So he's going to be spending a little bit less time with Doge, less time with politics. He's going to be investing less money into politics, and he's going to be focused a lot more on Tesla. He made that very, very clear. On top of this, Elon Musk went on about how the robotaxi is going to be looking for a lot of growth. We're going to see a lot of them to be launching very soon in the month of June. And he confirmed that by the end of June, they're expecting to launch their robotaxi business in Austin, Texas. That's huge news because this could help build some revenue, at least slowly. And it's really just starting the little steps into the future, right? As Elon Musk said, they want to stick 1 or 2 toes in the water, start off with a couple of these robotaxis, improve them, do what's necessary, then slowly put a whole foot, then a whole leg in the water before Tesla dives into this new world of AI with robotaxis once again making it all over the US. So they're starting off one little step at a time. The first domino is falling, then there's going to be more and more and more of them. That is a very, very good piece of news, and Elon Musk was very optimistic, and that's part of why we saw the Tesla share price jump to some extent. On top of this, there's been some more talk about how Tesla's head of finance, their CFO, basically is also going to likely be awarded another pay package worth more than $139 million. So I just wanted to say good for him. He deserves it. So awesome news, at least so far. On top of this, I wanted to say that there was some news involving China. So in China, Tesla's sales went up to about 8.1K. That's a big increase in insurance registrations, despite the fact that they're still down 5.6% quarter over quarter. But if we zoom in like this, so I know it's a little hard to see. See the purple line here? This is this year. Last week, or like 2 weeks ago, we actually saw about 3.1K sales, a big decline in their sales. Tesla was getting all the criticism. Now the sales went up to 11.1K, the highest we've seen all year long in China. We had the biggest week, at least so far, at least for this quarter. That's a good piece of news, at least so far for them. Sorry, not the biggest for the whole year. I meant for the quarter, the biggest amount of sales for the quarter, which is great news for Tesla, in my personal opinion. So keep that in mind. That's what we're looking for, at least thus far. We also saw a nice increase overall. This is like the total sales so far, especially in China. Although we're still a little bit short of what we've seen previously, we're still playing a game of catch up, and there's plenty of time left. So this gives us some optimism that maybe the sales can start improving more, especially because the news has come out that the Chinese interest rates are dropping. So in China, the People's Bank of China, they basically lowered the benchmark lending rates for the tariffs because of the tariffs that came out, which were hurting the economy. So the central bank cut the 1 year and 5 year loan prime rates by 10 basis points. This is good for all kinds of loans, household loans, car loans, and etc. I think this is helping Tesla sales, at least to some extent. So that could be some good news. As a result of this, President Trump mentioned that he wasn't really happy with Jerome Powell again. He met up with Tim Cook very recently, but we're going to wait and see what they have to say. He did mention that he wants to see Tim Cook and Apple invest more into the US than India. But besides that, President Trump went on about how he thinks that Jerome Powell is known for being too late. He is citing the fact that other countries such as like China are cutting rates. We're seeing European countries doing the same thing. But Jerome Powell's waiting. He hasn't given us the signal to cut rates yet, and President Trump is not happy about that. So the thing is, right, there's a lot of criticism for Jerome Powell because the thing is, could he be waiting until things start breaking to start cutting rates? Is he going to have to play a game of catch up? Would it be smart to just cut rates now? Excuse me. Some of these investors say yes, others may say no. So just keep that in mind. There's different views. But President Trump has expressed his dismay towards Jerome Powell. On top of this, I just wanted to say that President Trump has been more focused on Russia and Ukraine, making a golden dome in the US and a bunch of things like that. He hasn't been talking as much about tariffs recently. He did say that he wants to unilaterally increase tariffs on a bunch of different countries that don't make deals with the US soon, but that's pretty much it for now. So I'll keep you guys updated in case there's something else. Three more things. We have Target and TJ Maxx announcing earnings tomorrow morning alongside Zoom and Snow. And then tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, May 21st. Very quiet numbers. There's not really much data coming out. So we just have, some crude data. Everything else is quite minor, in my opinion. And the fear and greed index is currently at greed right now. It's making up the majority of sentiments. Will that end up shifting to be more fearful? When we go down, momentum is still at extreme fear. It might actually dip a little bit. The put to call option ratio is so low right now. Is this going to bounce as more puts are bought? And will the VIX bounce as well? There's a possible inverse head and shoulders formation, so I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. So let's now just focus on the charts and nothing else. What's going on with Tesla stock? What's going on with the markets? Let's talk about this. As far as Tesla's going, we're doing a decent job at holding up. But here's the first thing to remember, okay? But I know you guys can see this megaphone like pattern. But I want to ignore that for just a second, kind of like close that just for like a minute to show you guys this. So Tesla is technically range bound. When we were down here at 333, we bounced up to about 350. Then we dumped to 334, bounced back to 333. Then we bounced. We went a little higher, but then we rejected again. So as you could tell, we're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's what Tesla's doing. Now, if you want to be a bull on Tesla, just hypothetically, right? If we get a dip like this, if we get some big news involving Elon Musk, you want to break 350 and hold that. If that holds, we're going to be looking more bullish. Now, we did try to push for 350. We did predict this would happen yesterday, but the level did not hold, and we got a rejection so far, which is a sign of weakness. So if we're bullish, you want to break and hold 350 to continue to go. If you're bearish, you want to see us lose 333 if that fails us. I do anticipate we're going to be dipping to the 320s, okay, all the way down to like 325. But what do I predict is going to happen? In my opinion, I think that because we're range bound going back and forth like this, I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla does something like this where we come down towards this 340 to 338 area. This is going to be where the 20 EMA happens to be. And then we'll see if we get some kind of rebound off this or not. If we can't break out from there, there's going to be a risk of us dipping a little bit lower towards not only 333, but all the way down to 325. And we'll have to see if Tesla holds up. But I'm anticipating some consolidation, then maybe a little bit of a dip towards the lower 340s, if not 338. So please be very careful. I think that the overall market may drag Tesla a little bit lower as we're seeing some signals that show the market may dip. And also because Tesla has a triple bearish divergence and we got this big rejection of 350. Every time we're touching 350, we just reject by at least 10 points. So I think that there's going to be a little bit more downside coming tomorrow for a small pullback. As long as we hold 333, though we could still try to bounce. If we don't hold 333, we could be dipping to 325. So keep that in mind. Heading to tomorrow, we're looking for moves like this, 338 to 333. And we'll see if we bounce or not. If not, we could be continuing to fall even lower, all the way down to 333. For SPY is showing some weakness right now. And the reason I say that is because when you look at the chart, right, you could see that we have also a triple bearish divergence. The RSI is continuing to decline as the share price is making higher highs over and over again. So is the MACD. That's the first signal. The second thing is that we have this 20 EMA acting as an area of interest, and because we're in a chop zone. So if we dip, you want to see us get back above 595. If we break that, we could continue to push for 597 to 600 just in case we get a bounce. If we don't break this, we want to see us essentially lose 588. If that fails us, then I anticipate us dipping all the way down to about 585. So keep all of that in mind. But in my opinion, I think that the odds are favoring the downwards direction right now as we're getting this rejection off this divergence. So we could be dipping to about 589. We'll see if we rebound or not. I do think we could be making a move like this, and then we'll be watching to see if we make a new high or not. If we make a lower high, there's going to be a risk of us returning to 585, and I think this is the most likely possibility. So look for a test of 589 tomorrow. We'll see if we get a rebound, but if it does not last, this will likely continue to fall all the way down towards the 585 area. That's the most likely possibility unless we get back above these highs. We're favoring downside a little bit more based off this chart. So there is that divergence, which may cause us to dip. Unless we get back above this resistance, which I don't think is going to happen. I think we're favoring downside a little bit more. We'll see just to be safe and watch your levels. On the QQQ, it's the same thing essentially. So we're still technically like range bound right now. So we like to bounce off this 515 area, but we also like to reject off 522. Now, if we dip tomorrow to about 516, you want to see us get back above at least 520 to rebound. If we hold 520, we're looking for a big bounce back towards 525, and I will turn more bullish. But if we can't hold 516, we're looking for essentially, I would say the 513s to be tested again, if not 508 if that fails us. So what is my prediction? I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see a small dip to about 516 tomorrow. A little bit of a rebound. We'll see if we get back up to the highs or not, but I anticipate that this is what's going to happen instead. We dip to the support, we rebound a bit, then start to fall all the way down for a very, very healthy sized pullback. We have a triple bearish divergence. We're showing some weakness and volume is declining, which makes me a bit more inclined to seeing this. This also resembles a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. That could also be contributing to why the market may see some downside, right? That's another big possibility. On the IWM, we're still technically in a range. We like to bounce off 205 and reject off 210 like this, going back and forth. Now, if we break 210, we're looking for a bigger push. Now, if we end up losing 206, we're looking for a dip back down to 204 and also this gap built about the lower 200s. We're going back and forth like this, so we'll just have to see how things end up going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But I do think the odds are favoring 204, if not this gap fill. So be very careful in case we lose 206. So if we don't hold 206 tomorrow on the IWM, we're just 2 points ahead of that. We're favoring a move down towards that gap fill if we end up getting a break. So watch for confirmation, but that's what I want to give you guys a warning about. On ES, we have a bearish divergence right here. Also notice that we're barely holding our 20 EMA. So watch 59.40. If that holds, we could be bouncing for 59.80. If it does not hold, we're going to be at risk of dipping all the way down towards 5900 flats, if not 58.74. So make sure you watch your levels just to be safe as we're seeing some downside potential. With this bearish divergence, there's some weakness developing that could take us all the way down to 5900 or below. For NQ, we have a double top leg structure that's developed. We have 21,500 as our resistance, and we have the support down here at the lower 21,000s. We're just kind of choppy right now, so we'll see if we break 21,000 to be more bullish. But if we can't, this bearish divergence and double top that's forming could cause us to start dipping to about the lower 21,000s. So you want to be very careful with this. That could also form a distributive pattern, leading to a bit more downside. This looks like kind of like a giant M shape, if you want to go down that route. But my point is there's some weakness nonetheless. On Bitcoin, Even though Bitcoin's been pushing, there's a bearish divergence on this. So if we could hold above 106,000, this could remain bullish to try to push for 108,000. But if we don't hold 106,500, we could be looking for a move back down to 103,000. This is still decent. It's holding up nicely, but there's a big bearish divergence, which makes me a little bit concerned. So just be very careful. For Tesla, like I said before, I'm seeing a weakness on the MACD. I'm also seeing a weakness on our other indicators, which suggests we might be tipping towards at least 338, if not below to 333. And we'll see if we bounce there or not. Otherwise, we're looking for more downside. On Nvidia, we're forming kind of like a triple top here. I do see a test of about this 132 area. And we'll see if we bounce off this. If not, we're looking for dips about 130 or below to take us to even lower levels into like the 120s. So we are forming a head and shoulders. We're showing some weakness. I do anticipate us to be testing 132 to 130, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get as we see more sellers stepping in. Also, we have this bearish divergence, so we're still favoring the downwards direction. On Apple is once again making lower highs here. We're continuing to fall. We're going to see if we could break past 208s to bounce. If not, we could be dumping back down towards 204. My concern about Apple is this gap over here. We have a giant gap to fill at 199. So I do think that we might be stair stepping our way down if we can't get back above 210. So we got to get back above 210, or else we're favoring a big dip towards that 208 area. For Netflix, we're looking a bit more bullish, making higher lows here. As long as we don't lose 1175, we're favoring a retest of almost maybe 1200. And if we get a rejection there, then we can start retesting 1175. So I see some consolidation for now. We could pop and start dipping as we consolidate. So be very careful with that. For MSTR, we're still holding it very, very nicely, at least on the 4-hour time frame. I could be looking for a test of the low 420s, and we'll see if we reject back down to 409. For Celsius, we're making lower highs right now. We're just rejecting over and over again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come back down towards the 37.4 area to see a little bit of downside in case we get a rejection here. So I do anticipate a downside move. On Supermicro, we look bearish. We're forming kind of like a head and shoulders. There's a left shoulder here, a head and a right shoulder. Unless we hold above 43, we're favoring a move down to about 39.6, if not 35. So look for some downside for at least 39. On Palantir, we're rejecting. We're also forming kind of like an, if you want to look at it this way, this is like a miniature inverse cup and handle, which could be taking us down towards 121 or below. So we might be looking for a small downside move. For Rivian, we need to hold above 17. If that holds, we could be going higher. If 17 does not hold, though, we could be turning back down to about 16.5. So be very careful. On SoFi, we're continuing to make lower highs and lower lows. We need to get back above at least 13.4. If not, I do favor 12.8 to 13. So we're still favoring the downwards direction. For AMD, it's the same thing. We're making lower highs. Unless we hold above 113.8, we're actually favoring a move down to about 110 or below. So keep that in mind. For ARM, we're making lower highs. We got this rejection here, another rejection. We need to get back above 130. If not, we're favoring a move back down towards 128. So be very, very careful. For PayPal, we're in the middle right here. We're going to be looking for 72 as our support. If that doesn't hold, we're looking for a dip back down to 71.24. For Coinbase, we're just consolidating right here. We have to see if we could hold above support. I anticipate a test of 255. We'll see if we bounce. If not, we could be dipping to about 250. So keep that in mind. For Amazon's doing the same thing. So my concern about Amazon is the fact that this also resembles kind of like an inverse cup and handle, first off. And then secondly, we're watching 200. We got to hold this support if you want to bounce. If we don't hold this support right here, this is going to be at risk of dipping to this gap fill over here, taking us down to 193. So I do see some risk in Amazon. Same thing with Meta, right? Meta also has kind of like an inverse cup and handle. We're going to be watching 628 to see if it holds. If not, I'm looking for 620. And if that doesn't hold, we have that gap to fall all the way down to about 591. So you want to be very careful. Alphabet has a head and shoulders, right? We have a left shoulder, we have a head, and then we have a right shoulder. If we could hold 163, we're looking for a rebound. If not, we're looking for a dip all the way down towards 158. Microsoft is also in the middle. We need to try to continue to push for one key resistance at 460. We'll see if we hold above 460 or not. If we don't, I do anticipate 453. So we'll see if 460 holds. Just a few more. The VIX. The thing about the VIX is that I'm watching to see, is this a left shoulder? Is this a head? And then is this a right shoulder for an inverse head and shoulders? If we get back above 20, we're looking for that gap fill. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. It could go either way. The 10 year is very flat right now. We do have a gap to fill, and the dollar is also looking a little bit more bearish, which isn't really too bad. It's not really affecting the market as much as it usually does. So keep that in mind. The dollar could be an anomaly. Besides that, guys, the market is still looking a little bit weaker to me. And I think this could drag Tesla a bit lower tomorrow. So that's what I anticipate. But just to be safe, in case any other pieces of news come out, watch your levels. We'll see if Tesla could hold 350 or not, or if we end up losing 340 to dip to 333. I do anticipate a bit of a downside move as the most likely possibility for a test of 338, if not 333. So we'll see how things end up going. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for listening off this bearish divergence. So please have a good rest of your day, and I'll be back very soon with another upload. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and peace out.